problem here. It says write an equation of a line that passes through point 02 and is perpendicular to the line 4x plus 2y is equal to 3. Can anybody tell me what is the general equation of the straight line in slope-intercept form? I'm going to give you a few seconds to write the answer for me. Just type the general equation of the straight line. If you don't know it, just put the X next to your name. If you know it, I would like you to go ahead and write it down. Okay, those of you who didn't put the X next to your name, I'd like to see the equation. Okay, Caitlin, do you know the general equation of the straight line? Nobody? Okay, how about one answer? Chanel, how about you? Do you know? You know? Okay. Syria, you typed the answer correctly. So the general equation of the straight line is y is equal to mx plus b. So we'll be making notes of that, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. There is another formula that we can use, which is y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. This would be also a general equation of the straight line in the form of slope point. So m is the slope, and in this case b is the y-intercept, and this point x1 and y1 considered to be a point on the line. So it looks like in order to write the equation of the line, you need to know a point and the slope, or point or y-intercept. And in this case, we know a point. The one point is given to us. So we know 0, 2 as being a point, given point. So we know what x1 is. x1 is equal to 0 and y1 is equal to 2. But we don't know the slope. But we know the reference line. We know our line that we are looking for is perpendicular to this line here. If two lines are perpendicular, can anybody tell me what's the relationship between their slopes? If two lines are perpendicular, what's the relationship between their slope? So once again, if you don't know it, put the X next to your name. If you know the answer, go ahead and type your answer. If you have a microphone, you can just tell me what it is. So if two lines are perpendicular, like this, we want to know what's the relationship between perpendicular, means make it 90 degrees angle, right? If this is a line 1 and this is line 2, what's the relationship between the slope of those two lines? So what would be the slope? Let's call this M1, and the other one we call M2. So I'd like to know what's the relationship between their slope if two lines are perpendicular like that. Okay, once again, X if you don't know it, or type your answer. I'm reading the answer so far. Series are equal. They will be equal if two lines are parallel. If two lines are parallel, since we're talking about the relationship between the slope, let's look at that. If two lines L1 and L2 are parallel, you would be right. If they're parallel, then their slope would be exactly the same. So the slope of M1 would be exactly the same as M2. Okay, this is infinite. Since it's reciprocal, well, you're getting close to that. Anybody else? Just give me an idea. What's the relationship between the slope of two lines that they are perpendicular to each other? If the slope of the first line is A over B, if the slope of the first line is A over B, what is the slope of the second line? Someone says reciprocal. Reciprocal is correct, but not quite. Raymond, do you know? You said B over A. Raymond says B over A. Well, in addition to B over A, you're missing something. Anybody? Would be negative and reciprocal. Negative B over A. Please always make a note of that. If two lines are perpendicular, their slope would be negative and reciprocal of each other. So if the slope of the first line here is 1, let's say 2 over 3, can everybody tell me what the slope of the other line would be if they're perpendicular? Everybody type your answer, please, quickly. Don't forget the negative. It would be negative. Reciprocal of 2/3 is 3/2. Not 2/3, 3/2. Negative and reciprocal. Okay, that's another one. If the slope of the first line is minus 5 over 6, can everybody quickly tell me what the slope of the second line is? So that would be positive 6 over 5. Here you go. Looks like everybody got it. So if the slope of first line is equal to 1, if the slope of first line is equal to 1, can you tell me what is the slope of the other line? If this is 1, negative and reciprocal of 1 is negative 1. Very good. Okay. I remember this is a very classic question about this. If two lines are perpendicular, the product of their slope would be equal to a number. What is M1 times M2 is equal to? Can somebody tell me that? If two lines are perpendicular, the product of their slope is equal to what? Okay, M squared is not correct. If M1 is A over B, and then the slope, the next slope would be minus B over A. So the product of these two you're talking about, what's A over B times minus B over A? Or what is 1 times minus 1? Or what is minus 5? Negative 1, very good. So the product would be equal to negative 1. I remember this was one of the questions that we had on the final exam. So you should know that. So if two lines are perpendicular, their slope would be negative and reciprocal of each other, and the product of their slope would be equal to -1 then. Okay. If I see a check mark next to your name, you all understand this concept. If two lines are parallel, the slope is exactly the same. If they're perpendicular, the slope would be negative and reciprocal of each other. Would be always equal to -1, exactly. So because a over b times minus b over a is equal to -1. Then if their slope are negative and reciprocal of each other, doesn't matter what number we have here, any number times is negative and reciprocal of that number would be equal to -1. You see how 2 and 2 cancel each other, 3 and 3 cancel each other, and the answer would be -1. Okay? I don't see a response from some of you. Caitlin, you follow that? Could you put a check mark next to your name? Okay, very good. All right, so going back to this problem, they're giving us this reference line, and they're saying that the line is perpendicular to this line here. So what is the slope of this line? That's the question. 4x plus 2y equal to 3. Okay, I'm going to give a minute to everyone to write down the slope of this line, this perpendicular line. If you don't know it, put the x next to your name. If you know that, I want you to write down tell me what the slope of this line is. So the question is, what is the slope of this reference line? We have 4x plus 2y is equal to 3. How do you find the slope? What is the slope? What is the slope? Question mark. Okay, so it should be a number. Okay, what is the easiest way to find the slope when the equation is given to us like that? I know we have to know how to. There's a formula for the slope. M is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That's the formula for the slope. But in this case, we don't have as you see here, we don't have the two other points. We only have 1 point. In order to find 2 points here, we have to let x equal to a number and solve for y, or let y equal to another number, solve for x, find 2 points and plug in here. But there's an easier way to find the slope, and I got one answer here. Syria, you said y by itself, have y by itself. In other words, solve for y. If I solve for y, that would be an easier way to solve for the slope of any line. You're absolutely right. Because we want to get it into this form here. If I can write the equation in this form, y is equal to mx plus b, then the coefficient of x would be the slope, right? So in other words, if I isolate y and have all by itself, then I can see what the slope is. So I want to ask everyone to solve for y here. We have 4x plus 2y equal to 3, and write the equation for me. Again, if you don't know it, put the x next to your name so I don't ask you that question. But the rest of you, I want you to solve for y. If you have an equation in terms of multiple variables, by now everybody should know how to solve for one variable in terms of the other one. Okay? So x, if you don't know it, or if you just type your answer here. I got one answer. Christine, I see one answer from you. Okay, I want you to write it in this form too, right? In terms of y is equal to mx plus b. That's the form I want to see the answer in terms of. Okay, so Christine, go ahead and change your answer. And Raymond, you put x next to your name. So you're saying you don't know how to solve for y here? That was one of the questions actually we had in the first test. Remember converting from Celsius to Fahrenheit? Kind of like the same thing. To solve one in terms of another. To solve for y, you need to isolate y. So the first step is to subtract 4x from both of the equation, right? Let's do that. So here we have, if I do that, I get 2y is equal to, if I subtract 4x from both sides of the equation, comes minus 4x plus 3. Right? I'm subtracting 4x from both sides of the equation. Can I see a check mark next to your name if you all can see up to this point? Don't forget that minus sign. Would you see what we're doing, Raymond? Okay. Let's see. Risha, do you see what we're doing so far? The first step is to subtract 4x from both sides of the equation here. That's what we're doing. If I do that, 2y would be to the left, and then 4x becomes minus 4x to the right. Okay, so now if I divide this term by 2, then I would get y all by itself. Okay, so let's do that. If I would divide each term by 2 like this, I can do it right here. So there I have it. Y is equal to minus 4 over 2 would be negative 2x plus 3/2. Okay, so check your answer. Those of you typed your answer, some of you were correct, right on the money. Some of you not quite right. So in this case, what's the slope then? See, I changed this format to this format. So can you tell me what is the slope? Everybody just go ahead and tell me what the slope of this line is. -2, somebody says. Yes, correct. -2. So the slope here is equal to -2. So the slope of the reference line here is -2, right there. So if you want to find the slope of the equation that is given to you like that, you have to, one way is to solve for y and get it to this form, y is equal to mx plus b, and the coefficient of x would be simply the slope. Okay. Okay, now so again, the one way would be to simply solve the equation in terms of y, and once you get it to this form, the coefficient of x would be equal to this slope. The other way would be to use this formula for the slope. Then in this case you need 2 points. Okay, to find 2 points for this formula, you have to come up with a couple of points. You have to actually make a little chart here and say, okay, I want to find a couple of points here for that line. If x, we can use the easy number. If x equal to 0, what is y? If x equal to 0, can somebody tell me what y is? This whole thing would be gone, right? 4 times 0 would be 0. So it would be 2y is equal to 3. What is y? Okay, y says 0. That's not correct. If x equal to 0, y is equal to, Chanel, you said also 0 too. That's not correct. If x is equal to 0, you have 4 times 0 is 0. What is y? You have 2y plus 3. No, 2 is not correct either. Okay, a couple of you gave me a correct answer so far. If x equal to 0, y is equal to, you have 2y is equal to 3, so y would be equal to 3/2 then, right? Y would be equal to 3/2. Okay, so that's 1 point. We can do the same thing with the y. If y is equal to 0, what is x? If y is equal to 0, this time this term would be gone. So we have 4x equal to 3, so x equal to 3/4. That's correct. 3/4. Okay, so now we have 2 points for this line. If you substitute these points here into this formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, you get the same exact answer here, minus 2. And as you see, this is a lot easier, right? If you just simply solve this for y, the coefficient of x would be the slope. So that's the preferred method. If you don't use that method, then you have to come up with a couple of points and plug these points in this formula. So if you call this point 1, this would be x1, 3/2 would be y1, 3/4 would be x2, 0 would be y2, and you have to plug in here. Okay. So everybody sees it's a lot easier to just simply solve for y if the equation is given to us. We don't have to worry about finding the point. So can I see a check mark next to your name, everyone, if you can follow how to find the slope if the equation is given to us. The easiest way would be to simply solve for y and get it into the form of y is equal to mx plus b. Okay, so if the slope of this line here is a reference line is -2, since the two lines are perpendicular, what is the slope of the line that I'm looking for? Remember the relationship between if two lines are perpendicular? I want everybody to answer this question right now. Okay, I got the first answer, correct answer. No, the 2 is not the correct answer. It's not opposite. Remember, if two lines are perpendicular, the relationship, we had it just a minute ago. If two lines are perpendicular, the slope is negative and reciprocal of each other. Remember that? So if the slope of the first line is -2, if the slope of first line is -2, the slope of the other one would be negative and reciprocal. Caitlin, you're saying still 2. Why are you saying it's 2? Negative and reciprocal. -2 is like -2 over 1, right? So it would be positive. What's the reciprocal of 2 over 1 is 1/2. Very good. So that must be 1/2. Okay, so if the slope of the first line is equal to -2, then the slope of the other line must be equal to negative and reciprocal of that, which is 1/2. Once again, can I see a check mark next to your name if you all can follow this? So the slope of the line I'm looking for must be the slope of the line that I'm looking for, because they're perpendicular. Called the next slope would be 1/2. Okay, so I have all the information I need to write the equation of the line. I know the slope of the line I'm looking for is 1/2, and I already have 1 point. So I can plug it into this formula here, or I can plug it into this formula and solve for y-intercept. Okay, let's go ahead and plug it into this formula first. Again, here we want to use y is equal to mx plus b. Remember, we know the slope already, and we know a point. Slope is 1/2, and a point is given to me 0 and 2. Okay, that's a point. Okay. We don't know the y-intercept, so if you want to use this formula here, you have to treat this point as a point P. So this would correspond to x, this corresponds to y, and you plug it into this formula. Y is 2, m is 1/2, x is 0, and then you can solve for b. Can somebody tell me what b is equal to then? So 2 is equal to 0 plus b. What is b is equal to? Okay, Raymond, you put 3. You put 1. Okay, let's see. Okay, you changed the answer to 2. That's good. So that would be the quickest way to write the equation. So y is equal to mx plus b. So y would be equal to 1/2 x. Now we know this y-intercept is 2. So that's the equation of the line that we're looking for. This equation is perpendicular to this reference line, because see, the slope of this line we already used -2. The slope of the line I just find is 1/2. They're perpendicular, and also passes through this point, because I just plug these points into this formula and I find the y-intercept for that. That's one way to find the equation of the line. The other way would be to use the slope point formula. Y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. If you want to use this formula here, then you're going to use the point that's given to me as 0, 2 and call it point 1. So this corresponds to x1, this would correspond to y1, and the slope still is the same as 1/2. So in this case, you substitute for y1 is corresponding value, which is 2, the slope is 1/2, and x1 would be 0. So you get y minus 2 is equal to 1/2 times x. And as you see here, if I solve for y, I get the same exact answer as I did before. So which one is easier is really up to you. I think I prefer the first method here. I prefer this method here, to start with y is equal to mx plus b and treat this given point as point P, and then substitute that for x and y, and we know the slope. We can solve for b. Once we find the b, we're done. Or maybe some of you think this is more straightforward, because we can use the given point as point 1 and then treat this as x1 and y1, and then substitute for the slope and then solve for y. So either way would be fine. So we can use either method to solve for the equation of the line. Can I see a check mark next to your name if you all can follow how to solve problems like that? Now, if I change the problem here from